Hey everyone, Davram from Davram Gaming here, and we're going to take a look at the upcoming changes to some of the classic and newer cards of Hearthstone. Now, the patch notes just came out earlier this week. I believe if we scroll up here on the website, they might tell us where is it the 5th. So yeah, last week actually. And it talks about a variety of changes, and the changes are summarized here at the top, and they're calling this a balancing patch. And the reason they're calling it a balancing patch is there's been several decks that have kind of jumped to the forefront, specifically the Jade Druid and the Druid Taunt decks. And this balancing is really specifically targeting, a huge target to them, but also looking at a couple other cards that have been huge in basic. They're basically cards that if you're playing this type of deck, you have to have them in there. It doesn't matter what variant of the deck you have, you're playing one or even two of these cards. So let's go down here and look. The first card that they're changing is a staple of the Druid deck that has been with us since the very beginning of Hearthstone, and that is Innervate. Now, Innervate has always been a zero-cost card that gives you 2 mana crystals. It doesn't matter if you've got the empty mana crystals, it's not refilling them, it's giving you 2 fresh mana crystals no matter where you are. So long as you're not full 10 full mana crystals, and it won't give you to 12, it will just give you 2 new mana crystals. So you spend a spell, you go down to, let's say, 6, you pop this, you're back up to 8, and you can play something at 8. So this card has been critical to the Druid up until this point in Hearthstone because the Druid is based on ramp, so mana ramp. So the ability to quickly build a mana pool and play large creatures with taunt, creatures that do multiple different things early in the game. That is the Druid's bread and butter. Innervate has been a big part of that, as if you, let's say you're taking the first turn, you could have 3 mana on turn 1. Right. Let's say you're on the draw, so you're playing second. You could have 4 mana because you have the coin and an Innervate. Potentially, you could even have more than that. If you have 2 Innervates, a coin, you could have potentially on turn 1, you would have 1 mana for your turn 1. You would have 2, 3, 4 for the 2 Innervates, 5 for the coin. That's 5 mana that you could be playing something on. Well, it would be your turn 1, the game's turn 2, and that's a pretty big creature or a pretty big spell. It could really put your opponent behind and really hurt them. But again, that has been the bread and butter of the Druid deck. So what is the change to Innervate? As it's seen on screen here, it's keeping the mana cost the exact same. Keeping it the exact same at 0 mana cost. It's reducing the mana you gain from 2 to 1. So it's effectively making it a coin. Rogues have, a coin already. There's the coin that you start with if you are player number 2. And there's a couple other cards that allow you to make coins throughout the game based on certain conditions. It talks about here in the dev notes some other options that they thought about doing. That being refreshing 2 mana crystals. So not gaining 2 mana, but just refreshing 2 that you've already used. So effectively, this card wouldn't even be useful until turn 2. Well, or 4, depending on your play, but your turn 2. Because it would refresh 2 mana crystals. So you'd want to use those 2, then refresh 2 and play it. I really don't like that. I'm glad they didn't go with that option. It really does hurt that card a lot. The next one down is gain 2 mana crystals this turn only, which is what it currently does, but increases the mana cost from 0 to 1. I wouldn't be too horribly upset with this. However, it is, it does stop that concept of turn 1 ramping, right? Because you would have to use that 1 mana to play this card, which would give you 2 mana, so you've effectively net 1 mana, and you really wouldn't gain a whole lot. So not a huge fan of that option either. Next one, gain 6 mana crystals this turn only, so same thing it does now, only 6 instead of 2, and it would be the cost of 4. So effectively you're netting 2. Personally, I don't think that's a ramp card, right? It's a late game, below your opponent out, late game, throw up some defense and try to stabilize. That's more of in my opinion, a mid to late game, really late game finisher in my mind. Mid game stabilizer, etc. It's not the druid concept of ramping as we see it, as we've grown to love it and see it. So I'm glad they didn't go with that option. Now, as they state here, they're keeping in mind ideas of counterfeit coin and other combo cards such as the Gadgets and Auctioneer, Van Cleave, etc., etc., etc. Here's the thing. I understand that the Druid is very powerful right now with Jade Druid. I do not like the change to Innervate. It has been a critical card that has lasted since the dawn of time in Hearthstone, and I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that this card should have been changed. Yes, it is annoying if you're playing against a Druid and RNG is against you and they drop two Innervates and a coin and drop a 5 mana or a 6 mana creature or something on turn 1. Yes, that's annoying, but it's overcomable. We've all been in those games. It's something that you can quickly come back on. There's ways to handle that. But to actually take away the effectiveness of ramp, you're basically taking a critical druid piece, which is the ramp, and turning it into a counterfeit coin of the rogue, which is not supposed to be a ramp deck. It's supposed to be a combo deck. And you've basically turned it into a coin, which people get anyways if you're a player too. So in my mind, this was a poor decision. I'm anxious to see what it does. I think this, along with other changes, is really going to severely hurt the druid in the meta. I don't think it's going to, by any means, take it out of the meta, because Druid is obviously, one of the core classes, and Blizzard's really good about keeping things even, but I don't think it'll be as strong as it is right now. It's very dominant right now, but I think there's other changes they could have made aside from this one. Moving to our next change, another staple card that has been in every single warrior deck since the dawn of time, and that's the Fiery War Axe, or other people call the Fiery Wind Axe, because again, 2 mana for a 3 weapon with 2 durability. So why does that sound really good? Well, for Hearthstone players, 3 damage, that can effectively mean on turn 2, the warrior is able to take threats off the board pretty easily. A warrior uses its armor abilities and its armor cards in order to stop itself from taking damage, and with 3 weapon damage, it can take a lot of stuff off the board and keep the board relatively clean until they can get things out. For a long time, it's been joked as the Fiery Wind Axe because it seems like every single warrior, at least on turn 2, has this axe out. It's just something that you always run into, and you're just kind of like, oh, here we go, Fiery Wind Axe. And you know for a fact that now you're going to have to play around it because it can, the warrior's not going to care about his health because of all the armor abilities. I'm not too upset with the increasing this to a 3 mana. 3 mana for effective 6 damage, right? 3 mana, you've got 2 shots with it at 3 damage a shot. It's 3 mana for 6 instead of 2 mana for 6. I think this is I think this is really good. I don't think this is hurting this card very much. It's still going to be played in every single warrior deck. Most likely 2 of them in just about every single warrior decks out there. The other thing is it mentions down here about other weapons that are out there as well, like the Eagle Horn Bow and things like that. And it just makes more sense. It's in my opinion, it allows this card to be brought back in when, though it wasn't super overpowered, it definitely could change the tides of the early game, because a warrior is not too concerned with his health early game, mid game even, because they're just going to dump so much armor that they don't care about that early damage. So I think 3 mana for, effectively 6 damage was a good decision with this one. Next one down as a Shaman staple, the big Shaman crowd control ability of Hex, which transforms a minion into a 0/1 frog with taunt. Now, for the longest time, I never understood why Hex was 3 mana and Polymorph was 4. Polymorph being the mage spell that turns a minion into a sheep, a 1/1 sheep. But it doesn't have taunt. It's a 1/1 sheep, so it can attack where the Hex creature can't. I never understood the 3 mana. Because effectively does the same thing, right? It takes a minion of decent power or whatever power it is off the board and makes it a 1/1 or a 0/1 with taunt. Yes, the taunt can, be annoying because then you have to still deal with it in order to attack the face or other creatures. And the shaman, of course, could use other things to potentially buff it or things like that. However, it's still, the mage can do the same thing, right? The mage can still have ways of utilizing, or the person who has the sheep has ways of utilizing that sheep violently. So in my opinion, Hex should have always been 4 mana. So this isn't something that, in my mind, this should have been something done very early in the game. In fact, I personally think Hex should have been 4 mana from the start. Or you do something more along the lines of it's 3 mana with a 1 overload, which effectively makes it 4 mana. Just, you pay for it over the cost of 2 turns instead of 1. But in all honesty, I can't really say too much about this. Hex is still going to be used, and it's basically a polymorph now, which is fine by me. Now, a lot of people out there are probably going to say, well, now you're just making Hex polymorph, and it's not supposed to be the... Right, okay. In the game World of Warcraft, which we know Hearthstone is based out of, Hex is polymorph. Let's be 100% honest. They're both crowd control abilities that transform a creature into, a little critter that stops you from getting attacked by it. So Hearthstone is now just caught up, and we're now, where it should be. The Murloc War Leader. This is a card that has annoyed me for a very, very, very long time. I personally think the Murloc War Leader, especially back in the days of Murloc Paladin, which has resurfaced now also with the legendary quest card with Shaman, Murloc War Leader has been a very, very critical card to allow those decks to work, because it gives your Murlocs, which in general usually have 1 to 2 health, very low health creatures, easy to remove either through a hero ability or a small damage AoE, it gives them 1 more health. So effectively you could have now 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 health Murlocs or more, depending on what the other Murloc buff cards you have out are doing. So why is that so important? Well, Murloc decks are very cheap, and they're very aggro. So they're going to be in your face a lot, and they're going to be able to, if you clear the board, they're going to be able to reload faster. Giving your Murlocs more health, and therefore taking them out of range of, small AoEs like Holy Nova or small AoEs like Arcane Explosion, those small tools basically made those particular spells in general worthless. I know Holy Nova is still heavily played because of the healing aspect, but Arcane Explosion really is not. And being able to now change the War Leader from giving +2 attack +1 health to all Murlocs, just the 2 attack, now makes the War Leader still keep its aggressiveness for the Murlocs, but does not give them the survivability that made those decks very powerful. And Murloc decks, though everyone snickers and laughs at Murlocs, everyone loves Murky though, it just made the deck that especially Paladins and Shamans who could really use the Murlocs well, and Paladins have buffs of their own, just made some Murloc matchups just something that you couldn't get over. And especially, it made a lot of people go from, the Face Hunter style play, where, Face Hunter, you just clear the board and you hope you can keep their creatures cleared long enough to beat them up or stabilize, where the Murloc decks with these things like War Leader, their survivability sometimes lasted through many of these AoEs and were able to take care of you faster than, say, something like a Face Hunter. And in all honesty, I know they talked down here about changing potentially Rockpool Hunter as well as the War Leader. But in all honesty, I think this is a fair change. Changing the Rockpool Hunter and the War Leader really only targets, as we see down here, Murloc Paladin. Really, I mean, it really only targets that. And in all honesty, I've never really liked the concept of nerfing general cards just to hurt one deck, right? I've never seen this. I personally think nerfing this card hurts Murloc decks across the board, and brings them back in line where they should be, which is a early game aggressive deck more like, you know, a face hunter or something like that. So in my opinion, this is a good change. I'm glad they didn't change the mana cost. I think the mana cost should stay the same. A 3 for a 3/3, I think that's fair. +2 attack, that's definitely epic quality. But getting rid of that overall large scale aura of buff all your Murlocs with health, I think this really is good. And we might even see a resurgence of things like Arcane Explosion, maybe playing one in the deck or something like that, just to handle some of these early game Murloc decks, which now can't benefit from a turn 3 War Leader. Again, we have another target here on the Druid. And this is a new card, relatively new card, Spreading Plague. And what it does, as we can see here, summons a 1/5 Scarab with Taunt. If the opponent has more minions, cast this again. So basically what it does is if you have a clear board of no minions, and they have a board of 3 minions, this will effectively summon you 3 1/5s with Taunt for 5 mana. So it gives you the ability to stabilize the board quickly. Now, here's the issue that I see with this, is you could quickly turn a game from stabilization to winning because of this card. Especially if they don't have any Taunt minions, or you've basically shut them down. To be completely honest with you, I played this card the other day, and I was dead to rights. I was absolutely dead to right. Top decked this card, played it. They had very little health, but I couldn't focus on killing them because I was trying to stabilize myself. This card stabilized the board and quickly allowed me to turn my dead to right side into winning with this single card. It is definitely an overpowered card in my opinion at 5 mana. I think the 6 mana increase is definitely good. I see here in the dev notes, as we can read here, that they were thinking about increasing it to 7 mana, but because of the changes in Innervate, they kept it at 6. Now, here's what I think they should have done. I think they should have kept Innervate exactly the same. I know that doesn't hurt the Jade Druid and the Taunt Druids as much. It actually probably hurts the Jade Druids the most, reducing it the way they did. But keep Innervate the same, because again, classic card, classic thing that's just been around for a while. And effectively changing this card. I think what this card should have been, instead of evening up the board, they should have somehow worded it so you get 1 less Taunt minion than they have minions on the field. So if they have 3 minions on the field and you have 0 minions, you will get 2 Taunt creatures, right? So you will get 1 less than they have. I think, again, that gives you the ability to stabilize, potentially not, win the game like I did, but potentially it'll give you the ability to stabilize the board, maybe. But it'll also put, again, bodies out there and maybe allow you to dig up something out of your deck. I don't like the concept of bumping this up 2 mana, even, with the Innervate. I think 5 or 6 is fine. I'm okay with 6. But I think ultimately they should have left Innervate alone and just increased this mana cost and then dropped 1 minion that you were going to get. So evening up the board -1. And they could have even made it, read that way. Even up the board -1. So if they have 3, you have 1 dude, it'll summon one Taunt minion. I can't really get mad at this change. I think it was definitely necessary. The concept that they were even thinking of bumping this to 7 and reducing Innervate to 5, that's kind of stupid, because that makes this game, this card, a late game card at 7 mana. And in all honesty, if you need this in late game, I think you're past, this is, in my mind, a mid-game stabilizer. Something to stabilize you from the early onslaught of something like Face Hunter, something like a aggressive Murloc deck or a Zoo deck. I think at 5 mana, so roughly turn 5, potentially 4 for a Druid, that allows them to stabilize the board from that onslaught of the little dudes who are just eating away at you. And, I think bumping it up to 7, even for a Druid, reducing that Innervate cost, this makes it would make it a late game card. So 6, okay, but again, I'm still irritated with the change to Innervate. I don't think that's going to go over well. People are still going to keep Innervate in there just for, again, the cantripping that you can use for it. The little bit of ramp that you might be able to get out of it, but the 2 mana on, I think Innervate was absolutely fine. The 0/2. I'm not even a big Druid player. Like, I'm playing it right now because of the Jade deck, because that Jade deck is so good. But after these changes, I don't know if I'm going to be continuing to play Druid unless I can figure something else out. I'll probably go back to my Mage or my Priest, but I'm not a Druid player, and probably one of my least favorite decks to play. But taking Innervate to where it is, adjusting Spreading Plague like this with the Innervate change, it's just driving me away from Druid, and I don't think I will probably be playing Druid much after this chain goes into effect. A few other things that they were thinking about targeting is the Ultimate Infestation. Again, another target on Druid. I believe this one, if I remember right, is the 5. No, this isn't the 5 damage. Yeah, this is the one that's 5. Yeah, so this was the 10 mana card that does 5 damage to some sort of enemy, allows you to draw 5 cards, and puts a 5/5 ghoul into play. The idea that they were going to change this was to all 4. So a 4/4 ghoul, a 4 draw card, and a 4 damage. In all honesty, I think at 10 mana, the Ultimate Infestation is actually pretty good. Even, with the changes now to Innervate, I think this card maybe takes a little bit of a hit because you could have played this on potentially turn 8 or even turn 6. Here's the thing. It gives you good card advantage. It does put a 5/5 on the board, and it does 5 damage, which effectively kills just about anything mid-game, or 5 damage to the face. And they mention here, it feels bad to lose to this. There's a lot of good decks out there that can regain that card advantage. There's a lot of good decks out there that, if you're dropping yourself into that critical range of 5, I mean, that's a lucky boar on the hunter companion with a hero power after it. If you're dropping yourself to 5, that's terrifying. So I don't think I've ever felt bad losing to taking 5 damage to the face, or even taking 5 damage to the face or 5 damage to an enemy and them getting a 5/5. I don't think Ultimate Infestation has ever completely beat me. Now, maybe in the higher ranks and the high professional tiers, that might be true. But I think adding Ultimate Infestation, I'm glad they didn't, would just be, again, another huge hit to Druid. Because, doing the 4, I still think it's playable, maybe a 1 of. Right now, I play a 2 of it because I think it's a good card. I don't think it's like, oh my god card, but I think it's a good card at 10 mana for 5s across the board. So I think dropping it to 4 would make me drop to 1 of them in my deck, probably. Might even make me drop it out of my deck. I don't know. But again, my biggest issue with all of this is the focus on the change to Innervate, and I don't think Innervate should have been changed, period, end of story. Finally, Ice Block. They're talking about moving Ice Block to the Hall of Fame. Okay, here's the thing with Ice Block. Ice Block has been a critically annoying card since the dawn of Hearthstone. Since the very beginning of Hearthstone, any mage that has a secret deck, you can quickly identify if they have Ice Block, and then you have to play around it, knowing that they are going to live 1 additional turn after you kill them, because of the Ice Block. They said that they're not going to move it mid-year, which is good. I'm glad they don't move cards to the Hall of Fame during mid-year, which is really good. And they'll look to move cards to the Hall of Fame at the first expansion of the 2018. Here's the thing. If Ice Block, if it definitely looks like, based on the fact that they're announcing it here, will go to the Hall of Fame, and that's fine. Here's what it's going to do. It's going to affect mage decks a lot. You know, right now most mage decks that run secrets are usually running 2 ice blocks. One, it's 3 mana, which isn't that bad. But the other thing that I've noticed with Ice Block, especially with all the cards that have came out that allow mages to randomly gain mage spells, is the RNG chance that you may in fact get more than 2 Ice Blocks. For example, I run 1 Ice Block in my mage deck. Not because I don't have to. I have 2 of them. I just only want to run 1 of them because I can dig for them so easily. And my deck has a pretty high spell damage kill ratio. So why run more when I can just kill you, and if I need to survive another turn, I will, and then kill you the next turn when I'm alive. But a lot of people do run 2, and I understand that, and that's fine. But in a deck that I played the other day with my mage deck, it was a warlock deck, and I was dead. Like I said with my druid rights, I was dead to rights. I was dead. I was gone. There was no way for me to come back. And I cast the 5 mana spell, which gained me 3 additional random mage cards. I had Ice Block in my hand. Hadn't played it yet. It was my next play that game. I had 8 mana, so I was going to do that and then that. I played that card, got 3 cards. I played my Ice Block. Now, those 3 cards that I got just made me absolutely cackle alive on my stream because I got 3 Ice Blocks. So my deck, which was dead to rights, this Warlock did an excellent job of playing my deck. I had an Ice Block. He hit that Ice Block. I cast another Ice Block, which just so happened to trigger Archmage Antonidas for fireballs. He broke that Ice Block. I threw another one out. You can see how this goes. He had to effectively kill me 4 times, and he didn't have the gas to do it. So I can definitely see with a lot of the cards that allow you to make cards, the Ice Block could be very, very annoying, especially if with the RNGs and things like that. So we will see what happens with the meta with if Ice Block goes to the Hall of Fame, which it appears that it's probably going to go based on the fact that they put that in this press release. I know it says we've seen discussions about moving Ice Block to the Hall of Fame. As previously mentioned, moving cards to the Hall of Fame occurs at the start of the blah, 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 blah. They're basically acknowledging that they hear you and they're probably going to move it to the Hall of Fame. And it'll change the meta and things like that. But here's the thing. Mage decks don't need Ice Block to win. They don't need Ice Block to win. But I'll tell you what is needed. Druids need Innervate. That is the sheer concept of their deck from the dawn of time, and changing it now to what they changed it to is absolutely stupid. Thank you everyone for watching and tuning into this video. This is the first kind of a breakdown video that I've done. In this style of talking about patch notes, and I hope to do more. And if you do enjoy this type of video, please do drop a like. Please do hit the subscribe button. I do a lot of episodic playthroughs on my recorded content channels, so if you did enjoy that, please do that. I do want to thank MMORPG for allowing us to do some of these contents and putting it up on their channel. So thank you very much, MMORPG, for doing that. And I want to thank all my patrons. Without them, I would not be doing this right now because I wouldn't be able to financially do it. And eventually I do want to make this my full-time job. So thank you, each and every one of you who allow me to do this. I appreciate it. We will catch you next time, and you can catch me nearly every single night live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on mixer.com/Davram. See you guys later.